So when drawing lace holes, all we have to mark on our square paper is the place where the lace hole will be formed, which will look like a little circle, and the needle on which the stitch we are transferring will fall onto, which will look something like that. So for example, if I would to knit this, I would transfer using my one prong tool. I will pick up a stitch and then transfer it to the right. And you can see here this needle now has 2 stitches onto it, like so. And in order to form an eyelet, all I have to do is to put the needle back in action and knit however many rows I want, usually around 2 rows. And we formed our first eyelet. You can see here I have drawn 2 eyelets, one transferring to the right and one transferring to the left. I left one needle in between these 2 eyelets. It is important to leave at least one needle in between your eyelets so the stitches can be formed. So if I would do this, I would create one to the right. We'll leave one needle in between and one to the left, like so. You can see in this example here, I am forming again 2 eyelets, but this time I'm transferring to the left and to the right, and now we will have 3 stitches onto one needle, and this is how we would draw that. So I'm transferring once to the left. So now I have 2 stitches onto this one needle, and then here I am transferring to the right, and now I have 3 stitches onto this needle. Again, I'll put the needles in action and knit 2 rows. You can, if you want to make sure that it will knit easier, you can always pull this needle all the way out before knitting rows. In order to create a more interesting design, I like to transfer using a 3-prong tool. When we are transferring with a 3-prong tool in order to create an eyelet, this is how we will draw that. This is also called a full fashion transfer. So here we have the stitch where the eyelet will be formed, and then 2 stitches that will travel, and then here is the needles on which we will have 2 stitches onto. So now I'm going to create an eyelet using my 3-prong tool. I'm going to pick up my 3 stitches. If we're looking at our drawing, we are transferring to the left. So 1 stitch to the left like so. And we can see here, this is the needle on which our eyelet will be formed. So this is the eyelet. These 2 are the 2 stitches which are just traveling. And here, which is right there, this will be the needle on which our stitch will fall onto. And it will look just like that. And again, put the needles in action and knit 2 rows. Using a 3-prong tool is one of my favorite ways to create eyelets because it brings so much more texture to the fabric. For the next section, I will show you how to read the chart in order to create this section of the sample. So if we are looking at our chart right now and we want to create this section here, all we have to do is to see over how many stitches this happens. And I wrote down here we have 14 stitches, but we could always just count them. And then here each side we have a stitch which I marked in blue. And this time this will mean that this is a ladder. So if we look here, we can learn that. We can see that that will be a ladder, and we will leave that needle out of action for the entire sample. So you can see here how the design looks, and these are the 2 ladders. I really like to use ladders when I create lace on single bed. It just makes everything a bit nicer. In order to begin this sample, I will set my row counter to 0. It's where my first transfer is happening. And you can see here I only marked the rows on which a transfer is happening, so only the even numbers. And now I can see here I'm going to create the 2 ladders each side. So I've got 14 stitches here and the 2 ladders. And I'm going to transfer to create the ladders. I'm transferring just as I would transfer when I create an eyelet, but this time the needle will not go back in action. We know now that we are going to create this transfer using a three-prong tool, but if we weren't sure, we've got all the information here. So we've got full fashion transfer, create eyelet by transferring with a three-prong tool. I'm going to skip the 2 stitches in the very center, and I'm going to create the first 2 eyelets. One will go to the right as per my chart. And one will go to the left. I'm going to make sure to put these needles back in action, and I'm going to knit 2 rows. Now we are on row 2, and if we are looking at the chart, we can see that the eyelet will travel to the right. Before we skipped 2 stitches in the middle, and now we will skip 4 stitches and create an eyelet just like before. 2, 4. I like to push them a little bit, this way I can see better what I'm doing. And we will transfer just like before. And we can see here is the previous eyelet where it was formed, and now we are moving one to the right and to the left. Again, I will put the needles back in action, and I'm going to knit 2 more rows. We are now on row 4, and looking at the chart, I can see that I'm going to skip 6 stitches this time in the middle. With every transfer, we are increasing 2. So just like before, I'm going to count 2, 4, 6, and I'm going to transfer to create the eyelets to the right and to the left. So we are now on row 6, and we can see that we kind of completed one repeat. This repeats across, and again, just like we did on row 0, we will skip 2 stitches in the middle and do our transfer. So I'm skipping the 2 stitches right in the middle. If we would want to continue this pattern on a larger sample and we want to do multiple repeats, you can follow the chart, and then let's say when you get to the top at row 24 and you want to complete another repeat, all you have to do is to either set your row counter back to 0 and you're going to be back to where you started, or what you can do is you can write 24 down here. So you can write 24, 26, 28, 30, and you would be able to start a new repeat, but you don't need a new chart, or you can just use the same chart. This way you can use this design as a repeat pattern, for example, for the front of your garment or for the sleeve. It's really up to you how you use it. If you wish to create multiple repeats of this pattern, for example, all you have to do is to repeat this over 70 stitches. So from where the pattern starts and where it ends, we've got 70 stitches, and here I have 76 stitches that I needed to cast on for this particular pattern because I've got the 3 stitches each side. So looking at this chart, I know that one square is 1 stitch and 1 row across. I also marked every single row on which a transfer is happening. In this example, only on even numbers, but I could always write every single number if things would happen also on odd numbers. And you can see here we have all the instructions in order to be able to understand and read this pattern. So we know that every little circle here is an eyelet, and then here all the stitches marked with blue are the ones where we have a ladder, so we are transferring and leaving that needle out of action. And you can see here we have the full fashion transfer. So we are using a 3-prong tool in order to create every single eyelet. This one, for example, is a full fashion transfer to the right. So here we have marked a pair of eyelets, so transferring to create 2 eyelets. one to the left and one to the right, and here we have 3 stitches onto one needle.